The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Tuesday, the 13th day of May 2025. Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House Lindos, and People's Pharmacy. I'm Jamel Hartman, and Maya Palacio will be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in the news break brought to you by People's. How's everyone feeling? I got some hate mail yesterday. I even got some people on the street that were like, what happened today? And where were you? And folks, we did not show up yesterday. You didn't. Quite a few people. I couldn't find you. Were you on? And unfortunately, we were unable to communicate effectively with you yesterday to let you know that we were not going to be on. But it is a new day. And we are live today and excited and happy to be back live with you today. So we hope that you forgive us for our actions yesterday. But how's everyone feeling this Tuesday? Or, Monday Senior. If Thursday is Friday Junior, this could be Monday Senior. How's everyone feeling today? Did everyone have a great weekend? Mother's Day, if you celebrate it. How was everyone's weekend? How did everyone make out? And are you excited? We're another day closer to Bermuda Day, which means the unofficial start of summer. And for those who love the warmer months and warmer days ahead, maybe be blessed or lucky and favored, privileged to experience them. But hope everyone is feeling good today. And I am happy to be back with you. We are happy to be back with you today to have another community conversation. So greetings, everyone, and thanks for making us a part of your daily routine. A good one today as we welcome economic contributor Craig Simmons on. We're going to be discussing the Government of Bermuda's 2025-26 budget. The daily play is going to be a remember when. So another fun one. Don't think anyone's going to get the answer, but another fun one. And also, don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right. Well, we've got Nicole Hassel. She says, those lights behind you, something new. They usually only, they go to my voice. So when I talk, they change colors. But when I'm in Bermuda, this is kind of what we do. When I'm in my home studio, you will see that it's a very different look. So hopefully you like them, because I tried to turn them off, but the audience said, no, where's the lights? Suzanne Ingham says, super awesome Tuesday, Jamal and Maya. I really missed you yesterday. Sniff, sniff. Will you still be here on Sunday? I have an invite for you. I will. Well, I can't tell everyone my business. Maybe I'll tell you on the side. All right, folks, let's get into today's conversation. Obviously, we have Craig Simmons coming up, a person you all appreciate and enjoy. And we're going to be talking about the finances, state of the economy, and the Premier of Bermuda and Finance Minister's most recent economic budget for the country. But that said, every year we do one of these budgets, and every year it seems like our debt is, it remains. Right? So the question of the morning for all of us is, what would you advise the government to do to reduce Bermuda's debt? What would you advise the government to do to reduce Bermuda's debt? But a yes or no question, because we've asked what should Bermuda do with the income from the corporate income tax, right? But what do you believe? What should funds, right? What should funds from the corporate income tax go to? Like, we're going to ask you: should funds from the corporate income tax go towards reducing Bermuda's debt only? Because there have been people in the financial and economic space saying, before we do anything else, we need to pay down on the debt. So, question of the morning is: what would you advise the government to do to reduce Bermuda's debt? And also, should funds from the corporate income tax go toward reducing Bermuda's debt only? All right, only. This is your daily discussion brought to you by our friends at Titan Express and Secure Trucking. All right, let's see what you have to say. Well, Kenton Trot says, terrific Tuesday, TDH family. Indeed, indeed. And Kenton Trot says, one word: accountability in every area of government. Yeah. Um, yeah. Really simple, right? But what would you advise? What would you advise the government to do to reduce Bermuda's debt? I would say, number one, we I was watching a news program recently, and it was a woman who was like $30,000 in debt. And what she said she did, and I'm no economic advisor, no financial expert. What she said she did, she would pay like minimums down on her debt, but put some money in savings. When she got like enough savings, she didn't buy a house, she didn't do anything. What she did once she got that savings, so she paid down on her debt and created a savings. That savings within 2 years, 18 months, whatever, was able to wipe out that 30,000. That was actually interesting because she probably weren't able to take a trip or like, have any real, I'm not going to say fun, but pay for any experiences or anything like that because she was saving to pay down her debt. I don't know how it would work like that with government, but that's an idea, right? But what would you say? I'm not an expert here. WKD Lama says, no, it should go to the lowering the cost of living and funding social programs. But wouldn't you think that if there's no debt, it'll be easier to do that? And shouldn't the government's job be to create legislation and policies so that we don't need social programs? I'm just asking. Sean Smith says, use the funds from corporate income tax to pay down the debt. Okay. Yeah, at WKD Lama, I'm just saying, when you have no debt, you have a freedom to do whatever, to do what you're saying. So I'm just, Bermuda has to, we just don't have the income and resources to have the debt that we have. You feel me? Um, Kenton Trot says, use the CIT to lower debt. All right. Use the CIT to lower debt. Right. Suzanne Ingham says, stop giving themselves so many increases. Well, they haven't given themselves so many increases. They agreed to one in a very long time. But she says, go without a year's salary and put it back in the community or pay off our debt with it. I guess, yeah, I see your point with that. I don't disagree. Charles H. Jefferson II says the government should pay down the debt, but also need to focus on I don't think he finished there. But what else, audience? What would you do? What would you advise the government? What would you advise the government to do to reduce Bermuda's debt? What would you advise the government to do to reduce Bermuda's debt? But also, should funds from the corporate income tax go towards reducing Bermuda's debt only? Nicole Hassel says definitely yes. Kenton Trot says, I'm no economist, but getting rid of our massive debt should be number one. Charles H. Jefferson II, he says the government needs to focus on reducing the debt, but also working to reduce the need for social services. Social services are not sustainable. You said that so much more eloquently than I ever could have, Charles. But that's what I meant, WKD Lama. It's like, the whole goal shouldn't be um, using money to fund social programs. The whole goal should be finding ways so that we don't have a need for social programs. Um, in order to lower the cost of living and fund social programs, getting rid of the debt probably should be priority number one. But again, I'm no expert. That's just from where I sit. But what else, audience? What would you advise the government of Bermuda to do to reduce Bermuda's debt? You all are an intelligent people. You all are C-suite bosses, right? Executives. You're business owners, right? You are, entrepreneurs. You're administrators. You're caregivers. Your parents. You're Bermudians. Like, you have the wealth and knowledge to offer advice to improve all of our living situations. So what are your thoughts? What would you advise the government to reduce Bermuda's debt? Now, some of us may have had credit cards, right? Some of you have had mortgages. What have you done to pay off your mortgages that could be of help to the government of Bermuda? Like, what would you advise? What would you advise? This is your daily discussion brought to you by our friends at Titan Express and Secure Trucking. Um, this is an interesting one because I know that when we speak about what we were speaking about derelict buildings, what can we do with derelict buildings? And I know people were saying, oh, we should have this home or care this and that, which are necessary in our community right now. But these things require funds. And as long as we have a massive debt, it's really, really difficult for us to provide the social services that are needed. Um, Sean Smith says, my understanding is that the interest payments is around $130 million annual. That's like funding a ministry. Mhm. Silas Lynch says, reduce the government overhead by reducing the workforce in the government. It is bloated and it isn't a popular opinion, but it needs to be done. They need to I think it means incentivize private sector to create more businesses. I don't think anyone at this point, including people who are civil or public servants, would disagree with you, Silas Lynch. I honestly don't think anyone who has an understanding of economics and business would disagree with you at this point. I just don't. Um, Michael Daniels says, pay off debt, but hold on to a significant part of it. Go deeper. Explain why you think we should hold on to a significant part of it, Michael Daniels. Why? Why? Um, Silas Lynch says, hire those from civil service and private sector. Why? Are you saying hire them or should they earn the jobs? I mean, you want to hire the best people as a business in the private sector. You don't want to hire people just because they want a job or need a job, right? You want to hire them because they're going to help sustain your business, right? It's a fair exchange. Charles H. Jefferson II says, create an environment where businesses can thrive. Yeah. I think Mr. Simmons says it pretty often. Entrepreneurship, right, is a way out for us economically. Is it something that we truly understand? What else, audience? What would you advise the government to do to reduce Bermuda's debt? What comes to mind that you say, you know what? I would say, we Premier, Finance Minister, why don't you consider doing this? We already said the corporate income tax, the majority of us said, pay on the debt only. But what else? Is there somewhere we can cut? Is there somewhere we can invest in that we're not considering? I think many of you have said it time and time again on this show. I was speaking to businessmen yesterday, and they said to me, Bermuda's like at 55, 58,000 people. We need 70 for our economy to work. You know, it's not just bringing people to Bermuda, but who we bring, right? You know, if you continue to bring people to the island who are sending their money outside of the island, is that helping the economy? If you bring people to the island that are invested in the island, we have a better opportunity for our economy to flourish. Charles H. Jeffers II, he says, the problem with reducing the civil service is that the systems and processes are antiquated, which will lead to more frustration in the community. First, they need to improve processes. Well, I mean, the premier has said that they'll be using AI to do so many things. The challenge with that is you still need people to man that, right? But look, I think that very soon there are many things that are going to give, or well, should be able to give the government options as far as reducing it without the public service being worse off, right? But I think Charles makes a great point about community frustration. We've got Silas Lynch says, with creating businesses, they must also reduce barriers and encourage more businesses. Small businesses need to have more than 9 payroll tax payment deductions. Make it a 2 or 3 year deduction, maybe 5 years. All righty. What else, audience? Do you have anything else? What else do you think the government can do to reduce Bermuda's debt? Like, what would you advise if you were asked today? If you were asked today, what do you think? Like, if the premier held a town hall and he was literally not just doing it for optics, but wanted advice, needed advice to reduce Bermuda's debt, what would you tell him? What would you say? This is your country, your economy. This impacts the way you live. What would you say? What would you say, if anything? Or do we not have these conversations? Do we not understand? And it's okay. I was telling someone right before we came on air, man, when I read the budget and prepare for a conversation with Mr. Simmons, it's like, wow, I don't understand this. I have to really read other things to understand certain things. So it's okay for us not to understand. This is why we have these conversations, so that we can all get to a place where we have a better understanding of how our economy works. Right? Anyway, this was your daily discussion brought to you by our friends at Titan Express and Secure Trucking. We'll go through one more, and then we'll bring my applause to you in for Daily Hour News Break. We've got Michelle White says, yes, my unfavorable comment here. We need more people here, and they will send money home. Tax outgoing money from these residents when they send money home. Interesting. Tax the money that's being sent from people working in Bermuda back home. Charles H. Jeffs II, he says, we need to be honest about our statistics. How many people do we have here? How many people do we need? How much money is being sent out of Bermuda annually from individuals and business shareholders? Yeah, folks, if you haven't already, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X, or Instagram, during this next 30 seconds, do us a favor. Give us a like, love, follow, and most of all, share this link with your friends, your family, your colleagues, anyone who you know has a love or interest in Bermuda. Let's give some thanks to Titan Express and Secure Trucking.
The Daily Discussion is brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Visit TitanEXBDA.com, your leading tour and transport provider specializing in Black History tours throughout the island. And SecureBDA.com for all your property management, waste management, residential, and commercial trucking needs. Professional, punctual, and reliable service is our commitment to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Greetings, M to the P. How are you?
A bit of a slow start this morning, but feeling pretty good now.
Yeah, slow starts happen, Yeah, do you find like when you're in Bermuda, um, you're out of your routine, or your routine's very different?
100% is different. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously, I don't work out here. That's number one. Not for any other reason than it's just not my comfort in terms of like how I go about starting my day. The one thing I really do like doing it is feeling like people are around you, right? I do like that feeling, but it's like I feel like I am just off track in terms of getting ready and preparing for shows and so on. It's so different. I was like, I wonder if Maya has that same feeling.
Yes, Jamal. I'm sitting at the kitchen table. Like it's not the same.
Wow, what's for breakfast? Well, we were talking about reducing debt this morning, Maya. You know, I don't have the answers. I don't know. I think I don't know if you heard the strategy. I was watching the news recently, and they do these stories every now and then. Um, and I don't know how I found this story. I think I was watching like the Champions League, and after the Champions League came the news, like on CBS or something, and
Mhm.
they were saying woman clears $30,000 in debt in 18 months. Right now, I don't know what her salary was, but she's probably making 200, whatever. But the way she did it, I was like, man, I don't know if that'll work for government, but it was a good strategy. And what happened? She was basically paying the minimums on her debt or whatever, and saving, putting the rest in savings. And then once that savings got to that point, she just used the savings to wipe out all her debt. Do you think that's realistic for most people?
I think there's a plan that can coincide with that for most people that they just don't know about. There's so many different tactics and ways that we can invest, that we can save, that we can maneuver our money that we're just not taught, especially depending on, circumstances we are raised and who decided to teach you these things. It's just
Mhm.
some things are just right there and so clear and evident to us, but we don't have the privilege of knowing it.
Hmm. Privilege in knowing it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I
All
will
right.
say, when we talk about that, I'll take a line out of Curtis Dickinson's interview that he had with me on our walk when he talked about we are just spending unnecessary money. Our government needs to learn how to, I guess, spend within our means.
Mhm.
And something that I've been taught throughout all my years is to live below your means.
Yeah.
So that's also something that I think should be taken highly into consideration when we think about, do we really need to spend this money on traveling? Do we really need to spend this money here and there? Do we really need to have the money put in all these different pockets? Like, how is it benefiting us? What types of contracts are we actually making that, actually give back to us in a real time?
Mhm.
Who's taking from us? Who do we never give money to again? Like, all those things that probably just
Mhm.
aren't being streamed down the pipeline properly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, folks, hopefully the premier or his colleagues were tuned in this morning. You all gave some great feedback. And yeah, we will ask Mr. Simmons his thoughts as well. I'm pretty sure he loves this topic. But what you got for us today, Maya?
Indeed. Well, good morning. Good morning. This is your Daily Hour News Break brought to you by the good people at People's Pharmacy. Mother's Day did happen over the weekend, so I hope you did get to go and shop there. I personally did myself for a gift for my mom. So thank you to People's Pharmacy for that.
Fair
All right,
enough.
so here's your news break this morning. A lot of somber news as we recap everything that kind of happened over the weekend. So, the sudden death of Hune Smith last Thursday has been marked as suspicious, and the Bermuda Police Service are asking for anyone who had contact with Miss Smith within the week prior to her death to get in contact with them as soon as
What
possible.
we know from the investigation so far is that in the early hours of Thursday morning, so that's last week Thursday, we know that Ms. Smith was somewhere in the area of the Darrell's Wharf in Harbor Road and Ward, and we believe at that point she was in a motor vehicle, and she traveled in a westerly direction in that motor vehicle. The exact time of that, we do believe from our inquiries that it would be somewhere in the region of between midnight and about 3 a.m., somewhere in that region that she was there.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the community can, they know something, can share it and bring her family and loved ones some sort of peace, right?
Indeed. And like they always say, no matter how insignificant you think it could be, just go to them, tell them whatever you know, even if you just saw it in passing, whatever it might be, let them know so they can help bring this case to justice for the family. Now, in relation to the Legend shootings, which led to the death of Jasmine Smith and Shaquan Williams and the attempted murders of 3 other individuals, the police say the depth of assistance given in this case has been significant. Now, because of the incident, the police have been seen on heightened level of police presence throughout the island. I think everyone's seen it, everyone's witnessed it, and this has led to numerous arrests.
Since the 3rd of May, there have been 441 stop and searches, and that doesn't include last night. I didn't get those figures as yet. 11 warrants executed at various residences and businesses around the island, including 10 directly linked to the double homicide. There have been over 50 moving violation tickets issued, and more significantly, there have been 27 arrests, 3 directly linked to the murder investigation. 2 of those persons remain in police custody, I would say. 1 in police custody and 1 elsewhere.
You know what? This just may have nothing to do with that, but it does. I would like to know how, like, organizations like CURB, who I have a lot of love and respect for, but some of the organizations that have often spoke out against stop and searches, especially as they mainly impacted Black males. I'd like to know how they feel about this, because I think, no matter how we feel about stuff, sometimes we're allowed to change our perspectives based on the state of time. So I'd be interested to know how they feel about what's going on, because it's not like it's being done to just harass the community. It's a reactive approach by the police based on something major that happened. So
Yeah, it's one of the things that they are doing in their investigation in order to try to find justice, right? But I agree with you. Like, there was a time when I remember reporting about stop and searches and how, the level of it didn't really change the arrests or what have you. It just had a lot more, Black men being pulled over and, taken under different circumstances. But in this case, it's a reaction to something that happened. So you're right, it would be nice to see like how they feel about this instance. So police also mentioned that there have been sightings of the individuals, but they haven't been able to actually get their hands on them. But they also, again, what we talked about, they make no apologies for the high visibility of officers that are on the roads as well, because there's been an increased instance of just finding things that they wish the community didn't have on them.
I was just looking at the stats upstairs before I came down, and last year alone, which was a record year for police, we had something close to 40 incidents involving bladed articles. I mean, that is unheard of. 34 persons injured, 5 persons lost their life to bladed articles, and this year we're already up to a dozen, which is is not a good start.
oh my, oh my.
Yeah, things are spiking up right now. They even went further on to talk about, how we discuss antisocial behaviors when it comes to children, and how they did kind of point out like parents, like, stop allowing your children, or like you see the behaviors, like solve it, fix it, talk to them, nurture them. So they also like discussed that within the press conference too. And there was a lot of back and forth as well with the journalists talking about, well, obviously the community isn't helping if these people are still at large, if we still have all these unsolved murder cases. Even though the police are thankful for what the community has brought forward so far, it is still that instance of like, but is the community really doing enough, because these cases are not being solved?
Well, WKD Lama says, I still don't agree with stop and searches. They know who the suspects are. Why are they stopping everyone? I think they've answered this on a number of occasions. So I'm going to share what I believe has been said as far as 15 to 10 years ago. The reason that everyone's going to be inconvenienced, because this may offend people, this may make people uncomfortable, and it may make you unhappy. But there may be someone who's going to work in the IB sector that is aiding and abetting helping someone, right? There are people who go to work, live regular lives that could be helping somebody. And anyone, everyone can be involved in this. It's not just, keep in mind, they don't act alone. I know that's a tough pill to swallow. It's a tough pill to swallow, but they don't act alone. So unfortunately, and I don't like it, I'm with you, WKD Lama, but I served a lot of detentions for things I didn't do. And there's teachers used to always say, the innocent will sometimes suffer for the guilty.
Mm-hmm. Don't get me started on my suspensions that I didn't do. But yeah, you don't know who is. You just don't know. That's the main thing. You can't judge a book by its cover. You just don't know. And unfortunately, yeah, we're all gonna have to suffer. But it is, as was mentioned before, it's an island-wide problem. It's not just a police problem. Can't just blame the police. This is an island-wide community problem. We're all in some way impacted and in some way have responsibility for it. All right, so trying to move on to some positive light to give you some positive news for you. And this news break, Sakai Famous has set new national high jump record. She's one of Bermuda's best track and field athletes. She's a jumper, continues to soar. And about a week ago, she set a new personal best and a national record with a jump of 1.85 meters, which is 6 feet, 0.75 inches. Now, the impressive leap also set a meet record and a TCU facility record, marking a standout performance in her athletic career. Famous shared a video that you see right now of her jumping on social media, and she thanked the support system that she has and called it an amazing jump. So this milestone adds to her legacy as one of Bermuda's top track and field athletes, and she's already, caught our eye, and I'm sure she will progress by catching a lot of new heights throughout the future.
Future Olympian.
Fingers crossed, yes. Want to see it. So as for our weather today, it's looking like more sun than clouds, which is a thankful thing. I know we expect a lot of rain that never really came through, so also quite thankful for that. But yeah, looking like a sunny day, and we got a high of 75.
All righty. Well, not promoting it, but folks, it is World Cocktail Day. World Cocktail Day. And I guess it's only appropriate to ask you all because, as long as you do it in your home and do it in a place and you don't operate a vehicle afterwards, what is your favorite cocktail? What is your favorite cocktail? I'll go first.
Okay.
Back in my day, when I used to cocktail, I never really had one. I was not that person who had, like now I would have a mojito, but I never drank mojitos. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's weird. I never drank them, but yeah, mojito, a non-alcoholic mojito. What's your favorite?
Okay. Prior to making this year a sober year for me, so still going strong, 5 months in almost. What I like to drink is normally like some sort of wine mixed with some sort of spritz. Something light, but enjoyable.
Just get champagne then.
Sometimes I like a pomegranate spritz.
Oh, okay. My business. All right, let's see what the audience says. Nika Peace says mojitos. Okay. SC Skincare says virgin mojito. Okay, we drink together. Kenton Trot says holy water. Is that the water that
Where you find that at?
Yeah, that's the one turns into wine. Yeah. WK Lama says grenadine and ginger beer, mate. I'm there with you.
That's one.
Man, that's sweet.
It is.
Sophia Smethurst says Moscow Mule. All righty. Anyone else? No favorite? I'm glad. Hopefully
no one said dark and stormy.
I was surprised. I literally thought someone was going to say dark and stormy, or even like rum swizzle, but they tell us who they are. We've got Nicole Walker says Tito's, ginger beer, and a splash of cranberry, or a margarita on the rocks. Is margarita the one? That's the one where people got like salt on the rim, right?
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah.
Yes.
Salt on the rim. Salt in my drink. That's like having hot sauces.
That was it's good.
Oh, okay.
I approve.
I have salt on my chips and French fries. MP, you have a wonderful day.
You too.
Will talk to you soon. All righty, folks. Folks, if you haven't already, make sure you give us a thumbs up, a love, a like if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X, or Instagram. Do not go anywhere. We've got that conversation you all wait for every year for the last 4 or 5 years with Craig Simmons. Coming up, we're going to be discussing the government's 2025-26 budget report.
People's ACW, located at King Edward VII Memorial Hospital, carries over-the-counter medicines, toys, cards, and even toiletries. Our knowledgeable staff are there whether you're at emergency, visiting family, or a member of BHB staff, to show you our best even when you're feeling your worst. People's ACW, we're here for you.
Hi there, welcome to Medical House. We're located at number 6 Bakery Lane. I can't wait to show you all of the great stuff that we carry. Come on inside, let's see. Long days, long shifts, you no longer have to endure comfortable underwear. Designed by nurses, we now offer premium undergarments by Swoop that are unique, fun, comfortable, and functional. The only underwear you'll ever want to wear. Who says high-quality functional products can be stylish and comfortable at the same time?
See it all at our new expanded location on Bakery Lane.
Attention home renovators and design lovers, your dream space starts here. The brand new Kohler retail showroom at BAC Group is now open, bringing you up to 35% savings on all Kohler products at U.S. manufacturer suggested retail prices. That means no extra fees, no freight, no wharfage, no duty, no document processing fees, just pure cutting-edge Kohler design at unbeatable value. From sleek kitchen and bathroom faucets, vanities, toilets, to statement sinks, walking tubs, and spa-worthy bathtubs, BAC brings innovation and luxury within reach. Visit the BAC showroom on Mill Creek Road today for style, quality, no surprises. Just color from BAC.
Discover Drop It, your go-to grocery delivery. Browse and select from a wide range of groceries, from fresh produce to daily essentials. Our friendly drivers deliver fresh groceries to your door fast, saving you time and hassle. With Drop It, you get fresh groceries delivered fast so you can focus on what really matters. Drop It, freshness at your doorstep, delivered to your door with Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
Dreaming of expanding your business? With BDC's loan guarantee program, we support your ambitions. Get up to 75% guarantee on bank or credit union loans up to $300,000. Just your vision and our support. Apply today and unlock new business opportunities. BDC, Bermuda business starts here.
Welcome back to The Big Show. Jamal Hartman here. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House, Lindo's, and People's Pharmacy. Folks, don't forget to subscribe on our website and follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right, without further ado, let's give a warm TDH welcome to one of your favorite people, someone you love to engage with and hear from. We've got Craig Simmons, an economic contributor to Bermuda. Let's give him a warm TDH welcome, folks. You know what? This isn't fair. I don't have one. I don't have one, sir. This is not fair. I think I need to speak to the boss.
Oh, you said the guilty sometimes have to, or the innocent have to suffer for the guilty.
I did say that. I did.
Poetic justice.
Yes. Well, your head's a bit cut off. I think yep. There we go. Yeah, we don't want to cut the brain off. We need the whole brain. First off, before we go, how's retirement?
Well, this is day 498 for me. I think Mary Prince said it best. To be free is very sweet.
Wow.
Yeah. You can't, no amount of money can compensate for freedom.
Wow. I love it. I love that for you and audience. Look at him. He looks so peaceful. It's something I hope everyone gets to experience and enjoy. But thank you so much for always making time for us and finding space. We asked a question this morning, though, sir. We asked the audience a couple of questions. We asked them, what would they say? How they would advise the government to reduce Bermuda's debt. And we also asked them, should funds from the corporate income tax go towards reducing Bermuda's debt only? Before we jump into the conversation about the budget, what are your thoughts on those two questions?
Well, there are sort of three big items. Obviously, the first one would be the reduction in our 3.25 or $3.3 billion national debt. That seems to be number one. Put monies toward reducing the debt. The second would be the development of what's called a stabilization fund. We're going to talk a little bit about income tax, but the idea is that the flow of corporate income tax, if indeed corporate income tax happens, the flow of the revenues from corporate income tax into the government coffers is not going to be a smooth one. Some years there's going to be a lot of money flowing in, and other years there'll be very little. To give you an example, there was one reinsurance company that last year, first quarter, made a profit of over $600 million. Same quarter this year, they lost $700 million. So if you're taxing corporate profits over, say, the average of 3 to 5 years, you're not going to collect very much when you've got businesses making a lot of money one year and not making a lot of money the following year. So that's one argument for developing what's called a stabilization fund, almost like a savings fund, where you need to be disciplined because it's like getting a bonus. The fool is the person that spends their bonus before they get it. Yeah. So you might want to think of the corporate income tax as being a kind of bonus. And so you need to be very careful about it and put it in a slush fund, a sinking fund, whatever you want to call it. And then the third option that's been thrown around is to create what's called a sovereign wealth fund. The best example of a sovereign wealth fund would be, I think it's Norway. Norway discovered a lot of fossil fuels, natural gas, oil, maybe 30 years ago. And they developed legislation for the proceeds, or at least a portion of the proceeds from this natural gas, to be put into a savings account that became a sovereign wealth fund. And arguably, it is the largest sovereign wealth fund on planet Earth. It's in the trillions now. I would encourage your listeners to Google Norway Sovereign Wealth Fund just to get an idea as to how it works, how it grows. So those would be the three things: pay down debt, develop a stabilization fund so that we can fund government services in years when the corporate income tax isn't what we expected to be. And then the concept of a sovereign wealth fund.
Interesting. Yeah, the first time I heard of a sovereign wealth fund was it Qatar, or I think
yes, the Gulf states have that capacity as well.
Yeah,
it normally comes from governments that find a lump of gold, whether it be fossil fuel or, in our case, it's this thing called a corporate income tax. Mind you, we haven't actually found it yet because we haven't received any money from it. So we need to be really careful about spending money that you don't have.
Yeah. Audience, we'll send your questions, comments. We'll get through as many as possible. Let's jump into the budget. But before we jump into the budget, actually, just can you explain in the most layman terms ever? The Premier uses terms like surplus, budget deficit. Can you just explain for everyone to understand what those terms mean?
Okay. So you're thinking about the government and its budget. You have money coming in. So we're thinking like the government right now. So money coming in would mainly come from taxes. So payroll tax makes up the biggest source of government revenue, followed by customs duties, land tax, stuff like that. So that's taxation. And we raise about I think the plan for this year is to take in $1,200 million in tax revenue. And on the other side, is spending. Largest source of spending, probably health. Yeah, I think that's it. Health would be the largest expenditure for the government. After that, you've got things like national security. So that would be police, fire, prisons, the regiment, Coast Guard. After that, education. And I forgot to throw what's it called? Debt service, otherwise known as interest on the national debt, which in fact is about 128 million, makes it one of the largest ministries, if you will. And the deficit would be the difference between the money coming in, the taxes that government can collect from payroll, from duties, from land tax, minus what it spends on national security, health, education, and so on, paving roads. That difference we call the deficit. So the deficit is an annual thing. Think of it of in your household. Whatever you earn this year minus whatever you spend this year is either going to, if it's positive, we call it a savings. If it's negative, it's called a deficit. The debt now is the accumulation of deficits through time. Okay, so just to throw a spanner in the works, only because I'm doing some work in this area. 1995, the debt in Bermuda was, oh boy, $120 million. Now, the way to put that in perspective is to do it as a percentage or ratio of GDP. As a ratio of GDP, that $120 million of debt, that accumulation of deficits up to the point in time of 1995, worked out to be about 6% of GDP. If we come to 2025 or 2024 and do the same thing, we say, okay, so the debt, the accumulation of all the deficits through time is now about $3,200 million, otherwise known as $3.2 billion. Divide that by the GDP of about $8.8 billion, $8,800 million. You get a number in the region of 40%. So the debt as a percentage of GDP has increased substantially since 1995, from 6% to about 40% today. Now, before you get your knickers into a twist, we have to also understand that Bermuda is a fundamentally different place in 2025 than it was in 1995. If you were to ask me as a Black man where I would rather be, 1995 versus 2025, I take this hands down. I had a little picture around here from sort of 1995, where some young Black man at Bermuda College produced a document. What the heck? Here it is. It says, how do I survive in this society? The dating of it was 1994. The young people that produced that document, or one of the people that produced that document, had his house busted, arrested, taken to the police station, threatened with treason, which, by the way, has a punishment associated with it. It's called hanging. So that was Bermuda in 1995. I only bring that up because some people say, oh, back in the day, things were so much better. No, they weren't. So Bermuda is qualitatively, it's a different place in 2025. The social safety net is huge compared to 1995. So anyway, the debt is the accumulation of deficits, and it is, it's out of hand. It needs to be smaller. I don't like to compare it to the debts of, say, a country like the United States, where the debt to GDP ratio is in excess of 100%, or the debt to GDP ratio in places like the United Kingdom. I think the government has they've taken on, what do you want to call it, a guardrail, a rule of thumb, a heuristic to guide policy. And it works like this. They want the ratio of debt to tax revenue to be 80%. So if you think about the debt in Bermuda, $3,200 million, you take that in the top, and in the bottom, whatever the taxes are, that should equal 80%. So if you rearrange that, you're going to say, well, either the taxes in Bermuda need to be significantly higher, or the debt needs to be significantly lower. Right now, the debt to tax ratio is around 240%. The government has agreed that they don't want it to be 240%. They want it to be 80%.
Well,
So,
I want to transit. I'll go back to surplus though, because you.
Okay, sorry.
Going back to the surplus, the government in this budget projected a 43.3 million surplus for the fiscal year, next fiscal year, 25-26. That's more than double last year's figure.
Well, we're talking about very small numbers, so you shouldn't be impressed by the doubling of
Right.
You know,
Yeah. What factors have contributed to this surplus, and how sustainable is it long term?
okay, so in order to pay down your debt, you have to run surpluses. Think of your household. If you have credit card debt, the only way you're going to pay down, well, there's two ways to pay down credit card debt. You either cut your expenses or you increase your income. Yeah. So at the moment, the government is relying on an increase in tax revenue. So surpluses are sustainable as long as the taxes continue to grow. This is where corporate income tax comes in, because that's predicted to bring in an additional sort of $600 to $700 million. That is a huge windfall. If you think about the total taxes that the government is collecting today, about 1,200 million, collecting an additional 600 million, that's a 50% boost. I mean, can you imagine your income going up by 50%? Most people would like that idea. So that's why I'm a little shy about putting all of our eggs in the corporate income tax basket, because it sort of sounds too good to be true. And they say normally when it sounds too good to be true, it normally is. I think corporate income tax, and maybe we'll get to this later, is a distraction from the real problem that we face in Bermuda, and that is tax reform.
Well, since you mentioned it, let's not wait till later, because I think this is based on the audience comments. Everyone wants to talk about it, but they're anticipating $187 million plus in revenue
for this year. Yeah,
for this year. How? I mean, let's talk about realistically reality. And you just mentioned, we should be focusing on tax reform, but how might this impact Bermuda's international business sector and the broad economy? Because there's someone in the audience that said, Silas Lynch says CIT is going to be implemented globally. So if they leave Bermuda, they'll be hit with it in any jurisdiction they flee to. That I don't think is true though, because Cayman said they're not paying bowl. So that's not true, Silas Lynch.
Yeah, well, what's even truer, if such a word exists, is that the United States has not bought into the income tax, the global minimum tax. The U.S. Senate has not passed the legislation that would force U.S. companies to pay the global minimum tax of 15%, from which we expect to collect our corporate income tax. So the U.S. is not on board with this idea. The U.S. was indispensable, or it was felt that they were indispensable, but that was under a different government. The global minimum tax was largely driven by a lady by the name of Janet Yellen. She was the finance minister of the United States under Joe Biden, and she was pushing this idea because largely of her sort of economic pedigree. And so once Biden lost the White House and the Democrats lost the Congress, this idea has been dead in the water for the Americans. Then you look at the other side of the Atlantic Ocean with the Europeans. I wonder the extent to which European governments will pursue the concept of a global minimum tax, given, since Trump has come into the White House, you've got a trade war, an unprecedented trade war. I mean, it's been like over 100 years. And I wonder out loud whether the Europeans will not be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, and may decide, you know what, pursuing this global minimum tax is something that we can defer until sometime down the road. I haven't seen any evidence to support that, but the world is a very different place today than when Janet Yellen was the Minister of Finance of the United States of America, pushing this concept.
We've got
just a different place.
Yeah. I want to shift gears, but audience, keep your questions and comments coming through, and I'll get to them. I know some of you still have stuff on CIT, but I want to get to capital expenditures. The government has said they've outlined some projects like the Swing Bridge, and I mean, we've heard that before, projects like upgrades to the Tynes Bay waste facility. How do these investments align with Bermuda's long-term infrastructure and economic development goals? Like, I mean, some people say, well, and I'll use this expenditure project. Remember when the Dame Lewis Brown Evans building was built? I remember a politician from the OBA coming on my doorstep back prior to 2012 and saying that was an unnecessary project at the time because we didn't have the money. But what are your thoughts on these ones and other projects?
So because of the sort of austerity, we've had difficult times going back to the pandemic, financial crisis. The government, with its spending, shuffled money around. So when you think about government spending, there are basically now there are three pockets. One is current spending. Current spending would involve, the biggest part of current spending would be salaries of civil servants, and spending on things like paper clips, electricity. That's current spending. Spending that basically is on goods and services in the current year. Of late, debt service, or the interest on the debt, has become a major expenditure item. As I said, it's as large as the largest ministries right now. It's about $130 million, one of your listeners said. And then there's capital spending, which is things like roads, bridges, and so on. The trend has been for the government to decrease its spending decrease its spending on capital and shifting that to current to keep the lights on, as it were. That has revealed itself as potholes. I'm talking about holes in the roads, because if you don't go up on your roof and clean it at least once every third year, you're going to have problems. If you have an asset, that asset needs to be maintained. And the maintenance we would normally call capital spending. What we've seen in Bermuda is that the sort of public assets of Bermuda, like our roads, like our bridges, like our buses and our ferries and our docks, have deteriorated significantly to the point where, it became an election point. Potholes became an election point. And it was because we weren't spending money maintaining the capital, the public capital that we built up through time. I mean, the incinerator, the former minister, Colonel Birch, used to threaten and say, look, at any point in time, the incinerator is going to shut down. But we would, like ostriches, stick our head in the sand and say, okay, not today. It's almost like the St. Augustine quote, God grant me chaste and chastity, but not today. In other words, you kick the can down the road, and the government did kick the can on capital spending down the road to the point where it can no longer do that. Having said that, the 149 million dollars that they're planning on spending on capital is not a lot of money. It's hardly going to compensate for the lack of capital spending over the last decade. But so these are things that are absolutely necessary. Roads and bridges. You're not going to get goods and services around Bermuda. You're not going to get to work in a sort of fast way if bridges aren't working. If the Swing Bridge is not working, we have a problem for the people in St. George's. I mean, if roads aren't paved, we have a major problem. So capital spending is indispensable to the running of a sophisticated economy like Bermuda. I don't know if I'm answering your question there.
No, I think you are. I think it has to be done, right?
You can't put it off any longer.
Yeah, I guess a question is, in certain jurisdictions, mainly Black government-run countries, you see an investment from maybe the Chinese and other, different countries. I'm not advocating that, but is that an avenue that smaller jurisdictions like Bermuda should be considering?
Well, here's an interesting something. You talked about people sending money out of Bermuda. Foreigners coming in and sending money back home. It's probably the best kept secret in Bermuda. But the savings rate in Bermuda, the average savings rate in Bermuda is around 40%. So out of every dollar that's earned in Bermuda, on average, now I'm using a profane word right now, the A word, average. On average, out of every dollar that is earned in Bermuda, 40 cents is saved. So when you convert that into dollars, it's over $3 billion, $3.5 billion are saved in Bermuda, pretty much every year. So as a percentage of gross domestic product, so you do the 3.5, 3.6 billion as a ratio of, say, 8 billion, you're getting close to 40%. So the problem that we have in Bermuda is not a lack of capital. The problem that we have in Bermuda is what we do with the capital, what we do with our savings once we have it. So of the 3.6 billion dollars that we save every year in Bermuda, about one we put toward capital spending, public capital spending, private capital spending. So an example of private capital spending right now in Bermuda would be that Colossus going up on Front Street. The construction on Front Street. Mind you, that's not being financed with local money, but that's beside the point. You're doing a renovation on your house. You're a business and you need a new cement mixer or a photocopier, or you need to update your IT. That's where some of that $3.6 billion goes. One in fact actually stays on island, and 2 billion, the lion's share of whatever we save every year, leaves the island. So my pension fund, well, what used to be my pension fund, my superannuation fund, the contributory pension fund. I'm guessing that if you have a job and your pension fund is with Argus or BFNM or CG, those pension funds take your savings overseas and invest them in stock markets around the world. My point is this, is that the lion's share of the money that leaves Bermuda is Bermudian money leaving Bermuda, going into someone else's economic development. So when we're talking about taxing some Filipino nanny from sending money back to the Philippines, you're picking up nickels and missing the $100 bills blowing around. You're missing the point. We Bermudians do not have a problem with capital. We choose to send our capital overseas. And indeed, the assets that we have, like a Bermuda Electric Light Company, we sell that asset to foreigners. It's now owned by a Algonquin power company, something like that. Or there used to be a company called Cellular One. We sold that to a New England telecommunications company. Bermuda Telephone Company, we sold that to an Irishman in the form of Digicel. The Bank of Bermuda was sold to the Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation. Butterfield Bank was sold to Cargill, since which it's back on island. You can go around Bermuda several times, and everywhere you find instances where Bermudians have sold a local asset to a foreigner. So I don't get this idea that, we need to stop people from taking money out. No. We people need to stop ourselves from taking money out of Bermuda and invest in Bermuda.
Indeed.
I don't want to bring up the concept of love, but it seems that it's indispensable to an economy. To the extent that, I like to think that I love my country, but love without sacrifice is theft. And I think that many Bermudians suffer from theft. What are you willing to sacrifice for your country? I'll straight up. I don't know. I don't believe that the government should be giving me any tax breaks. So when I take my trip and I come back, I'm allowed to, I'm given $200 or $300.
Well, let's transition into that. You've literally transitioned right into where I want to go, because despite the government saying there's an increase in revenue, which we can touch on after this, because of course the revenue is going to be higher if the cost is going up for everything, right? But certain tax reductions have been implemented based on this new budget. So 50% cut in mobile phone taxes, reductions in customs duties, I think from 200 to 300. Speak about the economic implications, because like you said, it's like, I don't think that's going to help our economy, those little things. And someone said online recently, said, but Mr. Simmons said, give the businesses, local businesses tax breaks, not us. Speak to that.
Yeah. And again, you need a frame of reference. Love is a great frame of reference. This thing called the common good is a frame of reference. So when I think about what's best for Bermuda, I like to think of this thing called the common good. Like, what's best for Bermuda, not what's best for Craig Simmons. So increasing the duty exemption from $200 to $300 is wonderful for Craig Simmons, but Craig Simmons does not deserve the tax break, or a cut in, I don't know, duty on. Okay, so I've got this wonderful Mercedes-Benz sitting outside, and it's right next to the BMW. It's right next to the Bugatti. So when I'm buying parts for my Bugatti, Benz, and all those kind of things, I'm going to get a tax break. I don't deserve that kind of stuff. And from a common good perspective, what is the common good? For me, the frame of reference that I use, and I'm going to get philosophical and mushy on you today, is to talk about this thing philosophically. It's called the veil of ignorance. So Craig Simmons doesn't know that he's going to be born into a family that is so loving, so giving, that Craig Simmons doesn't know that he's going to have this cushy job at Bermuda College where he can retire and absolutely enjoy life to the max. I don't know that. Yeah. And because I don't know that, I'm behind the veil of ignorance. There is a chance that I might be born to a very poor family, an abusive mother and father. So when I'm designing, when I'm thinking about how society's resources should be allocated, I should be making those decisions behind the veil of ignorance, not from the perspective that I have right now, because the perspective that I have on the world right now is distorted. It's distorted by my position in the world, and my position in Bermuda is one of privilege. And so when I think about these duty exemptions, they're going to the privileged people in Bermuda, the people that can afford to take a vacation. Now, the people at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder in Bermuda, they can't afford to take a vacation. And for me, to make my way of thinking, government revenue should be targeted at those people, not at the privileged like Craig Simmons. Get those people the resources that they need to scale the socioeconomic ladder. Put these people in contact with people with high economic. So what I'm trying to suggest, that the commodity or the resource that we need to develop in Bermuda is a thing called social capital. And social capital, in simple terms, is giving people at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, the ones who don't have the privilege of Craig Simmons. Put those people in contact with people like Craig Simmons, who can help them fill out university application forms, scholarship forms, get them internships with international businesses, give them access to the pipeline into jobs that are going to enrich their lives. That is the way I think government and us as a people need to think, not from our position of privilege. The government, unfortunately, understands that you are selfish individuals and you only care about yourselves. And so they are, pardon the word, they're pandering to you, middle-class people. And my sense is that the majority of the people on your show are middle-class people who only care about themselves. That's a bit cruel, but the government is pandering to you. So instead of doing what is difficult, like tax reform, and saying, look, we've got to make some difficult decisions in this country, and we're going to piss you off in making those decisions.
I don't think what you said is a bit cruel. Reality is reality. I think we have a tendency, and that's why I love doing this show, is to get us to think beyond our norms or our needs and think of our collective needs, right? So I think, reality is harsh sometimes, right? Amari Simon says it here. We think that is 200 duty to 300's great, but actually that's just impacting that local retailer a bit more. That local retailer that is employing people and keeping money flowing in your economy. We don't think like that because we're not wired to think like that. We are used to being pandered to. Okay, they're doing this and it's great. Is it really though? We have to
It's
go
not.
more, because as he said here, those cuts are political. 50% mobile tax cut is 72 per year. 300 dusty exemption will only save $22 per trip max. So I think we need to go beyond the surface. And I know you're not a mean person, but reality hurts sometimes. That's it.
Yeah, and we're in a situation where if we're serious about paying down this debt, if we are serious about reducing inequality in Bermuda, these are big problems. We're not addressing them in a meaningful way, and we're not serious. But the problem is we live in a democracy. Well, that's not really a problem. But democracies often mean that I have to pander to you to get your vote. But if the politicians could develop some testicular fortitude and sit down and treat people as intelligent beings and say, look, this is the reality. I think we're more likely to get people on side than essentially being disingenuous. And I have to hold the politicians accountable for their unwillingness to be straight with the people of Bermuda.
Let's go to the audience. They've got quite a few questions. Let's go to Charles H. Jeffs II. He says, with the implementation of CIT, does Mr. Simmons anticipate some creative accounting? I liked it, the wording, by those subject to the CIT to reduce their tax.
The good thing is, so I have to give the government credit in the way in which they implemented the corporate income tax. First, with respect to the development of the concept, they worked hand in glove with the international business community. They didn't go off into some dark room and sit around the table at Alaska Hall and come up with the legislation for the corporate income tax. They consulted with the international business community. That's excellent. It's a shame that they're not that way with the fishing community, with the farming community, with other elements on island. But that's another story. So they went about developing the legislation in a responsible and a mature way, since which they've created a separate agency to collect the corporate income tax. There's a CEO in place. So essentially, there's a strong institution or framework in place to make sure that shenanigans don't happen. Essentially, we're mimicking what the Norwegians did with the creation of their sovereign wealth fund. They put into place an institutional framework that will make sure that if a crazy person like Craig Simmons takes over as finance minister, he can't dip into the pot and use some of that money to buy another Bugatti or Mercedes-Benz or his vacations. So you have to give the government the credit for putting into place the institutional framework that will make it virtually impossible for anybody to play shenanigans with corporate income tax. So 2 thumbs up to the Minister of Finance for that.
Indeed. We've got Rosalind Famous asking, to help us learn more about the economics of Bermuda, what sources do you suggest that we research?
Ooh, okay. Nowadays, one of my best friends is Claude. Oh boy, I'm giving a shout out for a proprietary product. AI, sorry. Living in 2025, we have become extremely powerful. So if you sign up or subscribe to an AI bot, whether it be Claude or Perplexity or one of these things, you put that into the engine and ask the question, tell me about Bermuda's economy. You will get a summary of the economy el quicker. So an example, the budget has just come out, or the National Economic Report. You don't have time to read 50 pages. Yeah? So you go to one of these sites, you download the document, throw it into the AI platform, and it will give you a 1 or 2 page summary that you can keep and read at your leisure. I think that's probably one of the better ways to get information on the economy. That's one of the great things about being alive in 2025. So do that with a budget, a document that's in the public domain. Do that with the National Economic Report. Do that with the fiscal responsibility reports that come out annually. The most recent one came out in December of last year. You can do that with most public documents, and you can have your personal summary at your fingertips.
We've got another one. Michael Daniel says, in Western societies, is there any correlation between national debt and the disenfranchisement of people of color?
Ew. Well, maybe the best example of that would be Haiti. So after the Haitian Revolution, after the Haitians got together and kicked the French out, defeated Napoleon, the Americans, the Europeans basically ganged up on the Haitians and forced them to repay a debt for, it was basically reparations. So Haiti was forced to pay reparations to France. And so the Haitian Revolution would have been early 1800s, I think. Yeah, early 1800s. That debt that the Haitians had to pay back was only paid off, I think, in 1944. You guys have got Google. You can Google that. So that's an example of where a debt or reparations were forced on a quote unquote Black republic. And it has led to the destruction of a country. I don't think you'll find a better example of a Black republic that was penalized for being a Black republic. And at the same time, of course, the Americans were doing exactly the same thing as the Haitians. The Americans were trying to free themselves from the tyranny of the English. The Haitians were trying to free themselves from the tyranny of the French. Of course, the Americans still had a pretty rough time, because in 1814, I think a bunch of ships left Bermuda and went up to the United States and burnt down the White House. I think that was 1814. So anyway.
Indeed. We've got Richard Scott says, great analogies and explanations, Mr. Simmons. Truth needs no apology. Manipulation and control feeds ignorance. Our selfishness today has a way of biting us daily and eating away at the veil that will reveal itself tomorrow. But that all this said, after hearing the government's budget statement for the next fiscal year, 25-26, albeit a bit later than usual, how should Bermuda and Bermudians feel about the country's finances going forward?
Okay, so we're heading in the right direction. The surplus for this year is, like $40-50 million. That is not enough. To give you some perspective, I mentioned this guardrail, or this target that the government has set for itself of debt to taxation of 80%. So right now we're about $1.8 billion away from that target. So for me, the immediate goal of government would be to reach that target. Forget about paying off the entire debt. Let's take bite-sized chunks. So let's go for the target that the government has agreed to hit. And then now let's put a time frame on it. So if you're thinking about $1.8 billion, and you say, well, maybe we should be able to hit that target in 5 years. So what would the government need to do in order to hit that target in 5 years? Well, get your calculators out. We're talking about $1,800 million. We want to hit that target in 5 years. Well, we'd have to put about $360 million a year per year toward the debt, so that in 5 years, our debt to tax ratio would in fact be 80%, not 240%. My point is this: we need to run a surplus, not of 40 or 50 million. We need to be running surpluses north of 360 million, getting toward 400 million, getting toward 500 million. We're heading in that direction, but we're taking small steps. It reminds me of the person who has a huge credit card bill, but they prefer to pay the minimum balance. We've got $605 million coming due in January of 2027. $605 million. 6 months ago, the premier said, we won't have to borrow any more money to pay off that debt. More recently, in this budget, he's backed off of that and says, well, we're probably only going to be able to save about $500 million by January of 2027. So we're still going to need to roll over a portion of the debt. The argument can be made, we need to be more aggressive with paying down the debt. Of course, that means perhaps monies will have to be taken away from social services. Perhaps money will have to be taken away from capital spending. Maybe the roads won't get paved as nicely as we would like. Maybe not as many ferries. Those are decisions that the people of Bermuda can make. But yeah, we're heading in the right direction, but we need to run, not creep. Right now, we are creeping. And the running is predicated on us collecting $600 million a year in corporate income tax. That, it's not predicated on Bermudians rolling up their sleeves and coming up with a way of saving $300 million or $400 million. We have given that responsibility to foreigners, which in some ways is irresponsible. Think about this. We have this thing called corporate income tax, but we would never think about having a local income tax. That's interesting. And think about the political economy behind that. Right now, the lion's share of payroll tax is paid by international business, by foreigners. They're already paying the lion's share. Now, I don't know about you, but what's that expression? Somebody calls the tune. The piper calls the tune. So largely in Bermuda, the political economy of Bermuda is controlled by international business. Yeah. If you want to increase taxes, you need to go and check out international business. Talk to ABIR, Belter, ILS Bermuda, ABIC. You've got to basically consult with them because they have the political power. They are calling the tune. And right now, it looks to me that we're going from the pan to the fire.
Well,
now we're going to have a situation where international business is going to be covering more than half of all the taxes in Bermuda.
Well,
that's a lot of power.
You answered one day Bermuda's question: to what extent do political donors influence our economic decisions? Right?
Yeah, I mean it's scary. I'm a man. I want to be in control. I want to be able to call the shots. Mary Prince, to be free is very sweet. I can't be free if I'm indebted to you.
Yeah.
And I just think that we're being pandered to. We're being naive to believe that this reliance on corporate income tax doesn't come with any strings attached. Maybe it doesn't, but we would be naive to believe there are no strings attached. I mean, I work very closely with international business. My students have internships this summer. I'm so grateful. My students are getting scholarships. We do lunch and learns with these international business. Love them to death. But there is that political economic question which isn't even being discussed, which is, quite frankly, irresponsible on the part of us Bermudians. Again, there's a steamroller coming down the road, and we're busy picking up nickels and pennies and missing the fact that we're being run over by a steamroller. We're just missing the big picture. Stop looking down, look up.
Yeah.
See the big picture. Anyway,
Mr.
I'm
Simmons,
rambling.
Always a pleasure. No, this is helpful. We've got some more conversation to have about jobs and Bermudians and the economy, but definitely would love to have you back. Oh, I say that all the time. You'll be hearing from us again over the next month. But thank you so much for always making time for engaging with us on so many things and helping us understand things a bit better. So we'll definitely be in touch, and hopefully I have a mug like yours the next time so we can have a proper cheers. So
it's about my privilege. You see, I'm a privileged individual.
I see what you did there. Have a wonderful day, sir. Talk soon.
All the best.
All right. Thanks so much. Craig Simmons, folks, if you appreciated the conversation, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. We're going to take our final break. We'll be back very shortly with, to wrap it up, I'll give my final thoughts. And I want to see if any of you get this daily play. Stick with us.
Did you know 3 out of 4 people say that they have a good understanding of life insurance? But do they really? When asked how much the yearly cost would be for a 20-year, $250,000 level term life insurance policy for a healthy 30-year-old, 80% overestimated the cost by 5 times the amount. Ready for this? The true cost for that policy is about $220 a year. That's as little as 66 cents a day, or $20 a month. So let's put this into perspective. Compared to other monthly costs, isn't getting life insurance a no-brainer? If you can trim back on some of these expenses just a little bit, it will allow you to dedicate the savings toward an affordable life insurance policy. Contact one of our life insurance agents today to find the right policy for you.
Looking for the best care for your pets? Noah's Ark Feed and Supply has everything you need, from top quality foods to toys and supplies. We've got it all. Join our frequent buyer program and earn rewards every time you shop. Plus, we've been awarded the Clever Customer Initiative program for helping you save more. And don't forget, we open an hour early on Saturdays so you can get a head start on your pet care. Visit us today or shop online for easy pickup or delivery. Your pets will thank you.
BAC's new color showroom is now open. Throughout April, for every $50 spent, your name will be entered to win great raffle prizes. Kumler from BAC, where luxury meets affordability.
All righty, welcome back to the Big Show. Thanks again to Craig Simmons for stopping by and engaging with us about the budget statement speech for 2025-26. Again, folks, whatever platform you're on, be it Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X, whatever platform you're on and you're able, please give us a like, love, follow, share the link with your friends, your family, your colleagues. Thanks again to the BAC group of companies, Medical House, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy, for ensuring that we can do this with you on a daily basis. All right, it's time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Bermuda Trivia. Bermuda Trivia is now available in stores throughout Bermuda. Follow Bermuda Trivia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. All right, audience, it's a remember when. Remember when. Let's see how many of you remember this. Last week, we discovered that Kevin Smith has won the Bermuda Day Half Marathon Derby more than anyone else. We're now asking, what year did Kevin Smith win his last Bermuda Day Half Marathon Derby? Wow, you all are off. 2018. No, 2018. No, Larry Marshall Jr. didn't even get it right. It's not 2004. It's not 2017. It's not 2008 NTS. No. Can I share it with you all? Yeah, is everybody ready? There you go. Larry Marshall Jr. 2003. And Stacey Ann Brown also 2003. Yes, it was 2003 was the last year that Kevin Smith won it. So yeah, that's your question. Real quickly, we got a birthday in TDH fam today. So everybody out there, I don't have my birthday music in Bermuda. So please let's give help us wish our colleague and our dear esteemed intelligent friend of this show, Mia Jambray. Let's wish a happy birthday, folks. It's her birthday today. Happy birthday, Mia. And that's why she's not here today. It's her birthday. She's celebrating. I just hope she has birthday cake because I really like cake. So I'm going to hit her up and say, hey, Mia, happy birthday. So where the cake at? So happy birthday to Mia. And if you see Mia, if you rock and roll in town and you pass Cassine, make sure you give her, just pop your head in and wish her a very happy birthday. She is a good person, and we are happy to have the birthday girl as a part of this team. All right, let's wrap it up. We discussed what we can do to reduce the debt. Many of you had so many good suggestions. Seriously, we need to find a way to reduce the debt. Now, as far as using the CIT to reduce the debt only, I actually like what Mr. Simmons said. I think what Mr. Simmons says makes sense. There's 3 pillars: the sovereign wealth fund, I forget it already, but the debt, and it was another fund, not infrastructure fund. What was the was it the stable fund? But I like using that. But we have to be realistic. CIT may not be everything we think it's going to be, folks. It may not be everything we think it's going to be. I do appreciate Mr. Simmons' candidness. And I think it's on us to really understand our economy a bit better and the finances and the state of the country. I am so grateful to him for making time to engage with us on a regular basis. And I hope that you all do share this information with your friends, your families, your colleagues. He is retired, and he's always willing to engage us about the economy and our finances. Let's appreciate him as we have him. And to appreciate him is to continue to share the information, to engage, and not just hear him out, but use the information to make each of our lives as individuals better. I'm grateful that he trusts this platform to engage all of us. And I hope that we're all learning something and taking something away that we can do, whether that's communicating with our elected officials or individually doing better with our finances, or shopping locally and supporting our local economy. There's something all of us can do. All right, here's your daily inspiration. Quote, Albert Einstein said, "We cannot solve problems with the same kind of thinking we employed when we came up with them," end quote. All right, folks, don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Thanks again to our partners, the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House Lindos, and People's Pharmacy, for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. I'm Jamal Hartman. Please do make it a safe and a great day. We are Izell. Peace.